Hello again, everyone, and welcome to a special episode of The Guido Goes Off. It is that time of year again when PWI, or Pro Wrestling Illustrated, releases its list of the top female wrestlers in the world this year, the PWI Female 50. Of course, if I did the Female 50, this would be a very long show. Just like if I did the PWI 500, that would be like a 4-hour show. So I, of course, with this list, I stick to the top 10 from the list. Now, this is Pro Wrestling Illustrated's rankings. Now, let's get into how it's graded. It's done over a grading period from late September 2016 to late September of this year. So right now, we're working on next year's list. The criteria goes as follows. Activity. Wrestlers, the more active a wrestler is during the grading period, the higher they will be. So let's say, for example, Becky Lynch will be higher than Nikki Bella. Win-loss record. Yes, wins and losses actually do matter for this list. Quality of opponent. Of course, if you're in a higher, a bigger promotion, like for say WWE, your quality of opponent's going to be, in theory, better than if you're in the Women of Honor. Notable titles held. So, of course, if you're a champion, it does carry weight. Now, of course, where the title is does carry more weight. Like, say, for example, someone who held the Raw Women's Championship will, for 3 months, will be higher on the list than someone who held, like, say, the NXT Women's title for 3 months, or for the same period of time. And that person on the NXT will be higher than, like, say, someone who was the Shimmer champion for the same length of time. And of course, importance to promotion. The more a talent is promoted, the more exposure talent is given, the higher they will be on this list. Now, I'm going to have a graphic here underneath. Now, on that graphic, you're going to see their name, what promotion they worked for, and there's going to be a number in parentheses behind it. That is their number from last year's PWI Female 50. If it has an L, it means they were not listed. Make sense? Okay, here we go. Number 10 in the PWI Female 50. A lot of fans in Japan will know her as Kairi Hojo, but the world now knows her from a much bigger stage as Kairi Sane. That's right, the Pirate Princess has cracked the list. Now, to give you an idea of what she did over that period, she was quite busy during the grading period. She held 3 different titles in Stardom. She held the Artist of Stardom, their 6-person title, as a member of Threedom. She held their tag title, the Goddesses of Stardom, with Yoko Bito. And she did hold basically their mid-card title, like the equivalent of like the Intercontinental or U.S. title, the Wonder of Stardom. Now, she did try unsuccessfully to gain the company's top title, the World of Stardom, from Io Shirai, who's also on the list. We'll get to her later. And of course, also in this grading period, when she left Stardom to join basically NXT and winning the Mae Young Classic. So, having those titles, and winning the Mae Young Classic was just still in the grading period. Big feathers in the cap. I mean, I don't know if it's as big as the one she actually has in her hat. I mean, it's definitely not as loud as the ones Alicia had on during Raw. I'm still trying to figure out what that means. But, of course, Everybody's looking to big things from her. She is in that Fatal 4-Way match for the NXT Women's title. So, you know, that was the year for Kairi Sane, number 10. Number 9, our first WWE entry in the top 10, Naomi. Naomi did improve quite a bit. And, of course, the big thing that jumped her up was her 2 reigns as SmackDown Women's Champion. Now, of course, she was able to, of course, she beat Alexa Bliss for the title, and then she had to drop it due to injury. Then, winning at WrestleMania, her first match back from her injury, coming back at WrestleMania, winning the was it Fatal 5 or 6? I think it was a 6-pack challenge for the SmackDown Women's title, and holding it until she was beaten at SummerSlam by Natalya. Kind of a shocker that one was, but still at least 4.5 month reign as a SmackDown Live Women's Champion. That does work for her. Of course, being injured. It wasn't for very long, but it still kind of hurts. But then also developing that new submission. I don't know what she calls it, but it certainly beats the rear view. I mean, I'm sorry. It's hard for me to take a champion seriously when their finisher is jumping up in the air, doing the splits, and hoping and praying someone runs into your butt. I'm sorry. But again, good for her. She's definitely put in the work. It is trying to be less flash, but then again, who knows where things will go from here. Hopefully they'll go up. I mean, right now it's kind of an even keel with the SmackDown ladies, so you hope things get better for them. So number 9, Naomi. Number 8. I do like talking about this lady. Probably not as much as I should, because she is quite a force in the Impact Knockouts division. Number 8 in the female 50, Impact Sienna. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of people would more prefer seeing Rosemary, at least in this position, probably. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm a big fan of Rosemary, but it's hard. It's always hard to argue with success. And during the grading period, Sienna was a champion. It was not a 2-time champion. Let's see. Because during the grading period, she was the Knockouts champion until she lost it to Gail Kim. Now she did become the Global Force Women's Champion by beating Christina Von Eerie, and then in a unification match with Rosemary, becoming the unified Global Impact Action Women's Knockouts Champion, whatever they were calling it, which now it is after the grading period, but she did lose the title to Gail Kim, but at Bound for Glory, it is, however, after the grading period, so this doesn't affect her spot on this list. Of course, she's a bit, she's quite imposing presence, very, very strong. Of course, you've got those 2 finishers to watch out for, the Silencer and the AK-47. And of course, that she's the only issue I can honestly say I have with Sienna is that despite her size, despite her station, she can seem a bit underwhelming. But because it always seems like she's the heavy for somebody. I mean, she should be her own thing. She has quite a fan following, and is very talented. so she deserves to be where she's at here. So number 10, or sorry, number 8. She was number 10 last year. She barely cracked the top 10 last year, but now she's number 8, Sienna. Number 7, the Queen of Hearts, Natalya. She has come a long, long way from the days when, for some reason, Kevin Dunn thought farts were funny. Now, Natalya's always been a talented worker, always a great asset to the company. And now, and very late in the grading period, becoming the SmackDown Women's Champion. Of course, she won it at SummerSlam from Naomi and has held it since. So, about almost 3 months as a champion. But of course, the cutoff, she only had a few, maybe a month. But it is great to see Naomi, or no, sorry, not Naomi, Natalya, getting more time. It does seem like being a heel seems a little uncomfortable to her, but she's doing her best. She's like I said, she's a phenomenal talent. She deserves to be where she is. And, yeah, so go Natalya at number 7. Number 6. For those of you who don't know who this woman is, you should do yourself a favor and watch her matches because you will be stunned. Number 6, Io Shirai. She's huge in Stardom. She was named by so I guess this counts during the grading period. She is so like the past 2 years, she has won Japan News' Joshi, or Female Wrestler of the Year, and she's held multiple titles. I think she was part of Freedom when they captured the Artist of Stardom title, their 6-person title, and for 18 months, she just dropped it fairly recently. She was the World of Stardom champion, which is the top title in the Stardom in the Stardom promotion. I have really only seen her once. That was as part of the Lotus Tribe on an episode of Lucha Underground, where the 3 of them, I think actually Kairi Sane was part of this as well, when they face off against Pentagon Dark. I was shocked, I was wowed, I was amazed. This lady has a ton of talent and no fear whatsoever. So, so she is worth, finding on YouTube. If, you're familiar with Stardom and all, she is worth a watch. She was within an eyelash of getting signed by WWE. I think they said it was an injury that kept her out of the Mae Young Classic itself. And then, unfortunately, WWE passed on her because WWE doctors discovered a heart issue. Japanese, she's been wrestling in Japan, which is a much more frenetic pace than you see here in the States, unless you watch Dragon Gate. But it's unfortunate that this happened, because I think she'd be a great asset to the Performance Center, the women's division. Now, of course, they did sign Kairi Sane, but Io's just that much better. And it's a shame, so who knows? And who knows what the future holds, but still, a great talent. If you can find her matches, watch them. You're in for a treat. So number 6, Io Shirai. Number 5, it's Bayley. It's Bayley in a repeat of last year. Now, of course, she did make during the grading period, she did make the jump from NXT to the Raw roster. Of course, she did assist Sasha Banks in a tag match against Charlotte and Dana Brooke. Was that part of it? I think it was. I think it was part of. I think it was part of last year. And then, of course, um, moving on to the Raw roster in like I don't know exactly when, but and then of course her big moment was capturing her big moment this year was beating Charlotte for the Raw Women's Championship and holding it for a good 2 months before dropping it to Alexa Bliss, which it's just kind of seemed to have been her downfall. Of course, she's this high on this list because of the talent in the Raw Women's division, but it just seems like she's been taken out of that top tier and kind of just floating around in the mid to lower mid area. Bayley's got a lot of fans. Bayley's great with fans, and you hope that things will go better. So I don't know if she'll be this high on this list again. I think it was simply the holding the title that kept her this high on the list. But again, hoping for better things. So number 5, Bayley. Number 4, Sasha Banks. Now, of course, this is going to go into that huge hot potatoing. Like the last part of 2016, we had that hot potatoing situation with the Raw Women's title between her and Charlotte. It's so she during the grading period, she was a 3-time Raw Women's Champion. So it's that's like I said, during the grading period, she's 4-time, but during the grading period, she only held it 3 times. And of course, still very, very short lengths of time. She hasn't held the title for more than a month, but still 3 reigns is 3 reigns. And of course, that big feud with Charlotte, and then is she gonna feud with Bayley? Then of course they working with Alexa Bliss for a little while, but she's the promotion loves her. Of course she's always getting merch. So, as we know, that does play a factor into this. So, number 4, Sasha Banks. Number 3, a huge. I think this is. Was it? Let me see. As far as listed people, we had one that was not listed, but as far as people that were on the list last year, easily one of the biggest jumps from number 29 to number 3, all 5 feet of fury, Alexa Bliss. What can I say? In the grading period, 4 championships. 2-time SmackDown Women's Champion, 2-time Raw Women's Champion, current Raw Women's Champion. So far, the only person to hold both Raw and SmackDown Women's titles, and easily the only person that has done it twice. And so, like I said, I'm going to get into why I think she should have been higher. I'm going to get into that later. Of course, everyone knows I'm not really a fan, but she's had a great year. She deserves to be. Honestly, I think she deserves to be higher. It's a tad higher, but and she moves merch, that. Of course, now getting away from her, getting away from that Twisted Bliss move, and now doing more, a more grounded offense. mean, between that DDT and for the love of God, that forearm. They're booking her like Nikki Bella. I mean, as far as her in-ring work and how she's being booked and how she's being portrayed, that is my biggest complaint. It just seems like they're booking her like Nikki Bella was booked during her Divas title reign. That record-setting Divas title reign. And, maybe it's time to open up the playbook a little bit. I mean, she's great at selling. So she's a great performer. But maybe just open up the playbook a little bit and do some something more with that. Really, that's my only complaint, at least as far as wrestling. And that, there's the reasons but it's hard to argue with the year she's had. So number 3, Alexa Bliss. Number 2, so I'm going to get into it. Number 2, Charlotte Flair. Last year's number 1. Hey, not quite the year she had last year. Of course, most of last year she was the Raw, SmackDown Women's Champion, which then became, or not SmackDown. She was the WWE Women's Champion, which then became the Raw Women's title. Of course, then became the start of the whole hot potatoing thing. So this year, 3 of her title reigns, 2 ended in losses to Sasha Banks, and 1 ended in a loss to Bayley. So, other than a certain person who shall remain nameless, number 3, both titles have been pretty much held by horsewomen. Oh, okay, and Natalia. Sorry, I keep and that's certain. It's a tiny thing. Got an attitude problem. Now, of course, the feud with Sasha, and the feud with Bayley, and then transferring to the SmackDown roster, where she's had success, but it just hasn't translated into gold yet. As we know, of course, during the grading period, was the unfortunate health scare with Ric Flair. By the way, watch the 30 for 30 special if you get the chance. It is great. It's wonderful. I heard Taker made the director and his crew coffee and snacks. Who knew Taker was such the host? Anyway, but I'm going to get into why I think this list should have been shuffled a bit. But, so, at number 2, Charlotte Flair. And number 1, number 1, let's face facts. No one was ready for this. Your number 1, Asuka. Let's see. Where do I go with why she deserved to be number 1? NXT Women's Champion throughout the grading period. Still undefeated throughout the grading period. And of course, beating 1, 2, 3 women at a time. How do you argue with that? You don't. Asuka has had the banner year, it took her being injured at NXT Brooklyn 3 to stop her. And then now she's moving on to bigger and better, hopefully bigger and better things on WWE's Raw roster. And it's, like I said, billed by WWE 523 days as NXT Women's Champion. And of course, she was undefeated throughout her almost 2 years as part of NXT. There's no denying who should have been number 1 this year, and it was Asuka. I think the list is fairly accurate. Like I said, honestly though, I would have flipped Charlotte and Alexa. I think Alexa should have been number 2. So let's face facts. You held both the main roster's women's titles. You held both of them twice. And Alexa was champion well over twice as long as Charlotte was during the grading period. If you go by, if I did my math, I added this up during, now this is during the grading period. Charlotte was champion 114 days during the grading period. Alexa was champion for 294. So easily double. Okay, I might have added last month. Sorry. So, but still, so like 250 days to easily double the amount that Charlotte was. So why is Charlotte higher? Because she's Ric Flair's daughter. But I'm just saying. That's really my only complaint about this list. Because if you go by the criteria, that should be higher. And plus, Charlotte lost to the person Alexa beat multiple times with a kendo stick. And I might be drilling that part a bit too much, but like I said, it's a very accurate list. A lot of great showings by women this year. Because and as women's wrestling gets more competitive, I think this list is going to get much more competitive, and we should see. I don't even know if I wonder there might be. The list might be the same next year, but I doubt it. I think there's going to be some major shuffling of this list next year. So, what do you think of the PWI Female 50? Who do you think should have been higher on the list, or lower on the list, or in this top 10? Let me know what you guys think. Post them in the comments section below. As always, you can talk to me via my social media. Again, I think for a limited time still have that poll going as to how I'm going to be spending my Sunday talking with you fine folks. And as always, feel free to like these videos, share them with everyone you know, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do so. It always helps us out. I am a little long-winded, so I'm going to stop here. So until next time, I am the Guido, and I think we're done here.